Welcome. What I'd like to talk with you about today is the whole area of partnership agreements. Not just because you may go into partnership or may be a partner yourself, but you will probably have clients that are in partnership. And there may be a few issues that you could address with your clients on the subject of partnership agreements, not least in the area of going concern, which I'll come on to. And now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the flip chart to scribe up a few points as we're going along. The areas that I'm going to cover are what we know as the 4 Ds, and it stands for death, disability, disagreement, and divorce. And clearly there are other aspects that you'd like to also consider. And for the purpose of the other aspects, I would refer you to the 2020 member CD, where there is a complete checklist of some 76 things to make sure that are in the partnership agreement or specifically are not appropriate and to be excluded. But let's start off with the subject of death, and this is an area where going concern is probably highest up the list of issues that you might look at as an accountant with clients in partnership. Just last year, I unfortunately lost one of my good friends who was a partner in the accounting profession, and unfortunately for his estate, the partnership agreement had nothing on the subject of death. And as you know, one then refers back to the Partnership Act of 1890, and a bizarre, weird thing that happens is that in the event that there's no mention of the subject of death, then the partners that he had, which by the way were salaried partners, not equity partners, have the right to manage and do everything that they wish to with the business, and the estate does not. And so we were in the most awkward position where the widow of my friend was unable to access the business and assist with the management or even sell the business because legally she had no title to do this. Now that of course is at very least some concern to the going concern of a business if the whole subject of death isn't covered. In the event, I'm pleased to say that the story had a very happy ending in that the partners that were left behind managed to see sense, and the practice was in fact sold, so we had a very happy ending. But it could have been dreadful. So have a look at the subject of death and make sure that you've got that covered. Items that might be of use would be life insurance policies, where the business takes out life insurance policies on the partners so that in the event of death we can readily pay out to the estate what we believe to be the value of the business or their share of the business. Now similarly with disability, I don't think you'll have too many difficulties with partners agreeing that we should have some sort of insurance policy to cover the eventuality of becoming disabled. In the same way that we would have insurance policy for death, we may have insurance policy for disability, critical illness and the likes. Now disagreement is somewhat more difficult in terms of a commercial partnership arrangement, in that the worst thing that we can do is have it written in such a way that it becomes interesting to a partner that wishes to leave to become disagreeable. And so what we find is that in the event of disagreement, maybe half of what might be paid out in death is what would be paid out should there be a disagreement, and then you would normally list down what constitutes a disagreement, with of course the last statement saying anything else we can't think of, we might need to refer to some sort of arbiter who can give us some sense of direction as to whether that's disagreement or not. Those are relatively easy items to make sure that are covered in our partnership agreement. It's the fourth one that I believe is the one that is most likely to come into force over if you're a 30-year-old partner and you've got 4 partners, the chances are that 2 of your partners will go through a divorce before they retire. And yet, how many partnership agreements do you know that have got something on the subject of divorce? What happens in the event of divorce? So even if it doesn't happen to you, you may well have clients that need help. So let's have a look at divorce. First of all, if you've ever been through one or know clients or friends, it's a very highly emotive period of time, and people tend to behave somewhat disagreeably if they feel that they have been badly treated. Now, putting that aside, what do we put in the partnership agreement to make sure that the right outcome comes the correct way for the existing partners and probably the partner that's going through the divorce? First of all, let's make sure we agree what financial information should be disclosed to enable the divorcing partners to calculate the financial matrimonial settlement. That also, by the way, would be helpful in order to calculate the child maintenance through the CSA. So which financial information will you allow in order to allow the courts, if necessary, to work out what assets there are, what liabilities there are, and what the income of the partners are? The subject of communication, unfortunately, needs to be agreed. In that, if I were a partner, I would agree that in the event one of my partners separating and being divorced, I would not accept communication from their spouse or their ex-spouse. So partners would agree not to take correspondence. We would encourage staff to do the same. We would certainly wish clients not to be contacted, and professional contacts. In other words, an upset party to a divorce may be tempted to call up partners or clients and badmouth the partners as they go through the divorce, and really we want to try and nail that if we possibly can. This, of course, is all subject to the judge overriding it, but it does give a sense of direction. The last area that I think is valuable is, well, what is the business worth in the event of divorce? Now, one might argue that because one is going through divorce stroke separation, your eye is off the ball. Your eye is off the ball, and that means your contribution to the business is not as powerful or as effective as it has been in the past, and therefore the value, or that partner's share of the value of the business, would be downgraded in the same way that we might downgrade goodwill for internal purposes rather than external purposes. And if we as a partnership agree, then there's no reason why that should not take effect. So hopefully what this will do is it will give some sense of guidance to the partners, and if necessary the lawyers and the judges, what we have agreed as a partnership in the event of divorce. This is the information we'll willingly disclose, but we don't want credit cards of other partners and all that sort of stuff being banded around people. We don't want bad communication, indeed any communication that is detrimental to the business, and the value of the business can be somehow valued in the event that there is a divorce. So there are a few thoughts. One of the biggest areas I have seen is the area of fee earning opportunity. Some of those points that I have just raised are wonderful fee earning opportunities for accountancy firms to get involved with. We have a culture of wanting our clients to return year on year. And what that does is it means that we typically sit down with clients, look at the finances, and resolve the issues very much more quickly and succinctly than some of the colleagues in the legal profession, who some of us have heard many times over, they're the only winners in a divorce. Well, I think you've got a wonderful opportunity to take on at least the financial aspect of a divorce and work with a solicitor to try and expedite the financial agreements. Equally, I think it's a fee-earning opportunity for you if you've got any clients who are in a partnership. Have they got something on subject of death? Is the going concern covered? In other words, what's the issue of disagreement and disability? And finally, have they got something on the subject of divorce? So there's just a few 10 minutes or so on some thoughts on partnerships, which I hope that you found very helpful.